What is going on, everybody? You asked for an earlier episode of A Dave and a Dan. You get an earlier episode of A Dave and a Dan. You actually didn't ask for it, but like most things, I kind of take the reins and decide for you. Because you guys making your own decisions, you just can't be trusted. As I showed you last week, I literally showed all the rigged crowd. Okay, it's so rigged that here are the charts. Here you go. Here you have it. Bet against the Cowboys, bet against the Steelers, bet against the Rams, bet against the Eagles. Bet. Look at all the public bet teams right here. Look at the donkey charts. And did you find yourself on the donkey end of the donkey charts? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because you want to know how public bet teams are doing this year. How about you pull that one up, Vanna White? Why don't you show them how the public teams are doing? It is 22, 38, and 2 against the spread after week 4. That's the worst start against the spread for the public in the last 20 years because you want to know why? The public has grown bigger. Sports betting's been legalized, and they're just marching more and more and more Dans down the aisle. But maybe after a while, a regular person, you get burned, you learn from your mistake. But I know your average Dan, he needs to look like a pizzeria owner. He needs burns all over his wrists. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's how you know I'm friends with quite a few pizzeria owners. I could always tell a pizzeria owner by their wrists and fingers, and they acquire those battle scars early, and then they're like wizards avoiding them in the later years. What does that have to do with week 5? I'm sure I'll find a through line. But Dave, how's it going? Last week, I think, treated us pretty well for the most part. And now that we're earlier in the week, I was able to find a couple player props that are out there. But we're going to be Dan shopping. We're looking at spreads and money lines this week.
There's not much. There's one that I really was hoping was up because I think I'm just going to hammer it anyway. I just know it's going to be too low. Similar to the George Pickens from last week where just the expected production was so much higher than the actual production, but just keep Courtland Sutton in mind for everybody.
Well, I was going to say, I was hoping you didn't spoil it because yesterday I did a segment called Ask a Pizzeria Owner. So if you were you're obviously, you're not a regular guy, so you would actually know what to set it at. But if you were playing the part of a regular guy, this is how I handled things that weren't out yet. Let's guess at what the line would be. And then based on the line that comes out, people will know whether to be excited or not. So if there are players that we think are in a perfect spot, I was going to ask you, I'll ask you about it later because one thing
why not?
All right, fine. Here. So, okay. So this has to do, you can even roll fantasy into it. Maybe people wonder, it sits, start. There obviously was an injury to Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. That made the big confusion about the Packers is how are they going to split this up? Night one, I said, who might take? They got 4 receivers, 2 tight ends. But when you remove Christian Watson from that equation, it consolidates the targets that go around. And you saw huge production from some of those players on that team, albeit down multiple scores. I was wondering what you think they're going to price some of these receivers at. Because if we're getting pre-Christian Watson type of numbers, just because they're like, oh, well, they still have a ton of receivers, they're going to roll Wicks in there. But I think there's going to be big opportunity if those receivers totals stay as low as they've typically been these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they won't. There's just no way. Not against the Rams.
Don't come into Dave's Pizzeria and ask for Green Bay props.
It doesn't mean that we won't be able to hit some Green Bay props at all. It does. I think you're going to have to see a pretty significant upwards adjustment on these Green Bay Packers. It's not just Christian Watson, it's the matchup as well. This is a Rams team that's allowing, like outside of last week, and that was Caleb Williams, allowing, like 400 yards per game on the ground, through the air. It's been rough. I think that game has legitimate shootout potential. It has a 48.5 point total. Jordan Love has clearly proven himself to be up in the upper echelon among quarterbacks. So yeah, I think it'll be up there. The question then becomes like, what's the spot that you want to hit? Because you're going to have Tucker Kraft, who's been very involved. He's playing almost all the snaps now. Luke Musgrave is becoming more of an afterthought in the passing game. You have Wicks, you have Jaden Reed, who's awesome, and you have Romeo Doubs as well. let's not forget about Josh Jacobs as their pass catching back. They work Emmanuel Wilson in on the ground, but Jacobs should get a lot of work in this game too. So I think you wait to see what they are when they come out, and maybe there's some value individually, but I don't think you're just going to have blanket value across the Packers this week. The books are going to absolutely know to price these up. That's why I think Sutton will have value there. I think it'll probably be hovering in the low 50s. And I think like we got Pickens at 48.5 last week. Went for 113. If you laddered that up to 110, you got it at plus 850 on DraftKings, which is wild. That's why these ladder props on underperforming guys is great. Another thing too, Andy, is if you go into PFF, now it's not a fantasy show, but this is applicable. You go into PFF, you can look at there's an expected points tool in the under the fantasy stats.
Hey, by the way, some states and country, like people who bet in Canada in DraftKings, they have fantasy points as an actual DraftKings sportsbook bet. So it does apply to a decent amount of people.
It's funny you say that. Was it the Friday night game for Philly against the Packers? DraftKings had fantasy points here too in Pennsylvania. I was shocked.
So it varies by state. I looked all excited, and I go 8 miles west, it's legal. I go 20 miles south, it's legal. Connecticut, I'm not sure, but there are weird rules about what you're allowed to bet in on a state-by-state basis. Like some states don't let you bet on awards. Things like who's going to win.
I can bet on NFL awards. I can't bet any college props in Pennsylvania, and I also can't bet. I can't bet the draft. It's weird, but I can bet anything else. So yeah,
is that an actual meeting where some guy who's not even that educated goes, all right, they show him a whole board and he's got to choose what he shoots down. He goes, well, we got to shoot down something.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Yeah, we can't let him bet on fantasy points in Kentucky. Not a chance. Like
how about this? I can bet, so I can play DFS for whatever I want, except I used to be able to play college. Can't play college DFS anymore. And I can't do second half DFS. Like, you know how they have the second half contest for games? I can't do that. It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, that's a first half crowd.
Sutton has the 10 fantasy points per game, 17.9 expected fantasy points per game. Is crazy. Someone in the DFS show today said, every time I tune in, this guy's meat riding Courtland Sutton, which I've only done this week. I didn't think it was a fair comment, but that's okay. Expected receptions is 20. He has 15. Expected yards, 306. He has 192. So maybe we look fantasy point bet there. Maybe we look yards. Maybe we look touchdowns. It's early, but I think we're going to have some good spots to snipe off later in the week.
You should see my expected bankroll. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just not been converting on many.
I hear
some passes were overthrown. They were out of my catch radius. The reason I brought that up is if there's going to be one guy who's going to slip under the radar, I wasn't going to blanket bet them. If I can walk into your pizzeria, I mean, this is a well-established pizzeria. This is not just some guy who's taken over his dad's business. This is a guy who started it himself. So we're not getting any deals on flour here. But I wanted to ask you about Dontayvion Wicks, who, when you look at his number every game, even going back to last year, if there is no Christian Watson, he commands a massive target share. And if there's a little discount we're going to get, it's going to be on the one of the four who that slight elevation into the top three, they're not going to make it absurdly high. It's not a 1-for-1 trade with Watson. How about this? What would you give me as the pizzeria owner? Like, this is what I want to bet.
On Wicks?
Yeah.
With no Watson? 52.5?
Wow. Guys, my guess is it's 38.5. And I'm going to use one of my favorite plays for this week and one that I gave out on the Patreon because it wasn't up when we filmed our episodes. And that is Jordan Addison. And I'm going right back to it. You want to know what he was last week? 38.5. 38.5. This is not some bum. This is a really good player playing on an offense that still doesn't have TJ Hawkinson, and you saw what his replacement was clearing 38.5. So he went well over that. He was well on his way over to going over that in week 1 before he got injured. And now they're facing the Jets, who are going to have Sauce Gardner stapled on Jefferson. If Jordan Addison in that offense with 2 receivers out there is being penciled in for 38.5, let's just say Wicks is in between me and Dave. I think that's a number I could still live with.
On Addison, yeah, I have no problems with that.
On Wicks.
Oh, on Wicks? Yeah, so first of all, I just pulled up our projections for this week. Now, our projections definitely take props into consideration pretty heavily, from sharp sources. But we have Wicks at 40 or 54.7 right now.
Just something to sniff about. Just something
Yeah.
I wanted to really put out there. But actually, why don't you finish the defense of why Addison might not be a great play?
No, I have no problem. I was just going to say
Oh.
DJ Reed's also good alongside Sauce Gardner. But that Vikings offense is humming right now. I got no problems with that.
Okay, so where I really need your help this week, I really don't think I'm doing a video on it because I've heard you say this on your show. You're not just going to say picks because it's time to say picks. This is a weird Thursday matchup. You don't quite know exactly if either of these teams are very good or how good either of these teams really are because we've seen both sides of it. We've seen the Bucs throw beatings. We've seen the Broncos destroy them. So we don't exactly know what we're getting there. And then we're getting these Falcons who are weaseling close games in wins, losses. Very difficult for me. So I was hoping you can just, provide me a little something to pass along to the people. Because other than maybe thinking that after a poor week and a touchdown callback, Bijan's receiving was something that kind of stood out to me. But this is very difficult.
This game is tough. The sides on this game, tough. Everything's tough. If I were betting one spot, and I did sprinkle on this a little bit, it would be Chris Godwin over 6.5 receptions at plus money, at plus 15. And here's why. The Atlanta Falcons are really good at taking away the deep ball. They've only allowed 4 receptions of 20-plus yards this season. That's the fewest in football by a pretty decent margin, right? They don't allow many yards either. They're allowed the 12th fewest passing yards. But they've allowed the 5th most receptions to receivers, even though they're not going for big plays. And they've also been peppered by opposing quarterbacks in the slot. And I think when you look at a spot like this, they're good at protecting deep. They do have a good secondary. Mike Evans is a little bit banged up on top of that. The whole estimated practice reports for these Thursday games on Tuesdays are so silly. It's like Mike Evans was a non-participant so if they practice, it's estimated that he would not have ridiculous. But
Yeah.
Point being, I think he's fine. Maybe not 100%, but probably fine. If there's one guy this matchup really sets up well for, it would be Chris Godwin in the slot. That's a lot of receptions, but you're getting it at plus money. And I think you could see a lot of opportunity go his way. But again, I'm with you. This is a difficult game, man. This is a tough spot.
Why is the Buccaneers' run defense so good for 10 years?
Vita Vea, one reason.
It's unbelievable year after year.
Yeah.
So playing indoors in a dome, this rat bastard Darnell Mooney just keeps getting so many looks. 45.5, I think, is extremely achievable for a guy whose target share has been pretty good. I believe he runs like 100% of the routes, something in like the high 90s. So he's like a permanent full-time player. We know Pitts contributes nothing. So you're basically looking at him and London through the air against a team, and obviously Bijan against a team who is always most susceptible through the air. So that's just something to think about. Now, going back to that next game, there's people still claiming rigged. My favorite thing is when I present actual arguments that people just can't kind of defend, and their response is, Can't believe there's a guy out there who doesn't believe it's rigged. Great counterpoint to the actual examples. It's the classic donkey. I need to justify my sense of losing all the time. It needs to be rigged. So these guys can sleep at night. They need to take the Steelers still. So they'll claim it's rigged. Then, come on, the Steelers at 3-0. They got a shutdown defense. They're playing Anthony Richardson. Can't complete a pass. It's a lock. And by the way, Hurricane Helen was a weather-modified storm used to displace people in western North Carolina so elites can run a land grab on the biggest lithium deposits in the country. That's you. That's you. You went straight from the Steelers, and when that didn't work out for you, you had to go with the weather-modified hurricane.
You don't think Hurricane Helene was a weather-modified storm used to displace people in western North Carolina so elites could run a land grab on the biggest lithium deposits in the country?
How can you not if you had the Steelers? That's clearly what the case is. So for the 5th straight week, I will try to steer you guys away from being an absolute donkey. I mean, I don't want you to be tweeting things like this next week. So let's keep you away from the Twitter banned list and the Twitter reported list and whatever sort of, I want to be there, Andy. I'm anti-authority. Well, let me get you to be an anti-donkey by showing you some of the charts that came out this morning. And it just so happens that the top one on the list, 82% of Draftkings tickets on the Vikings. Oh, they're undefeated. Sam Darnold against his old team. I'm an absolute donkey. One of my favorite plays. I saw it move up to 3, but I'm probably just going to take the money line, not because all the donkeys are on one side, not just because the unlucky guy didn't go to prom, all that stuff. He's taking the Vikings. He's sure they're going to win. He's already ordered something on his credit card thinking he's just going to pay it off with this early Sunday payment. And that's the Vikings minus 2.5 against the New York Jets. I love the New York Jets in this game. Classic case of overperforming team on Sunday. Well, or just say playing up to, I guess, their potential in the Vikings. And then the worst possible scenario for the Jets. That was a dismal performance. But going into this game, you have everyone taking the Vikings. You have this Flores defense. If there's somebody who you're not just going to trick with exotic blitzes, this, that, and the other, it's going to be Rodgers. You guys know what I've been saying about these quarterbacks. Go ahead. Run all your exotic blitzes the same way that the Falcons used to try to use the amoeba defense against Peyton Manning. This is the perfect kind of guy to crack their defense. And also, the best part about what's happened to the Jets recently, I believe we teased this a week or two ago where I said, I hope he has another bad week, and another bad week, and another bad week so that I can take him and more with the alts. So I like the Jets to win this game. Classic embarrassing performance. Everyone's burying them this week. Now you have a comeback where everybody's betting against you and then you overperform. Let's not forget, 2 weeks ago, everybody was praising the Jets as, oh, now it's all coming together. Prime Aaron Rodgers. He's rolling out. He's throwing dimes. And now, oh, it's the worst Jets. You can't just, it's the cadence. Everybody is just an absolute donkey is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm going with the Jets here. And give me that severely depreciated total down in hell. There's no Christian Gonzalez this week. There's no Patrick Surtain this week. There's no L'Jarius Sneed this week. There's a good defense, but there's a total unbelievably achievable here for Garrett Wilson, who's been in the headline. It's not going to be squeaky wheel is going to get that grease. So on top of Jordan Addison, I am destroying the Garrett Wilson over this week.
I like the Wilson total. I do. A lot more than I like Addison, for sure.
That's fair. Wilson is my favorite. I just want the reason we brought up the Addison before was just because it happened to come up to compare with the Wicks. Wilson is my favorite prop I've seen so far this week.
Okay. I like it for sure because I think it's too low and he's just
talk shit on it if you don't like it, Dave. Don't be a fake agreeer around these parts.
When have you known me to fake agree with you on this show since we started doing it?
I know.
What I was going to say though is, I think I've been early on Mike Williams. I think I've been early on Mike Williams, and that big game is coming. This probably isn't the spot that I'm doing it, but 28 I probably should be. 28.5 yards for Mike Williams is wild. I mean, first of all, he's cleared this in back-to-back games, 34 and 67. Last week, when Rodgers needed to go to get a ball deep, it was Mike Williams. And they brought him along a little bit slowly, totally understandable. But I just have a difficult time believing that you're not going to start using this guy. And I think they will. 28.5 yards to me is pretty shocking in a spot like this. Brian Flores is putting opposing quarterbacks in a blender. There's no doubt about that. But, Aaron Rodgers has been around long enough to where you'd think he knows how to read pretty much any defense possible. Also, in your defense, it's a terrible weather game last week. They still suck. Don't get me wrong. That is not an excuse. But they kicked that field goal. Maybe we're not even talking about this if that goes through. But, Mike Williams gets deep attempts. He can create. He's a guy that you're looking for down the sideline. Mike Williams is the type of guy that what's Mike? Do we have a longest reception prop on him yet by any chance?
There he is.
I mean, that to me right there is the spot I would be looking. I like 16.5. Is there a 15.5 anywhere?
Scroll down a little, Alex. They're being shiesty. They don't want you to have that 15.5. You're not getting it.
There's usually an industry consensus on these longest reception props. So I usually don't go to them all that often. But I mean, Mike Williams is just the type of guy that when it happens, it happens. Like he has a 19 week 2, he cleared it. Week 3, he cleared it. Week 1 doesn't count. Week 4, he had 2 of them longer than 16.5 yards. So I
look at his route tree. How many times is he pulling up at 5 yards and catching it? All of his routes are deeper down the field.
That's what I mean. So even if he only has 4 targets, one of them is likely going to be 20 yards downfield.
I got to be honest. That's smart. That's smart. If he's going to catch the ball only in one area of the field.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty interesting. What do you think about the game as a whole? What do you think about, you think the donkeys are being led to water or to their slaughter?
Favorites are in the international series are 21-11-1 straight up. Against the spread, they're 17-16, which just tells me like, okay, that's probably how it should be, right? 51%. Sure, the favorites have won more games. Oh, shocking.
It's usually because they send somebody to their death out there. Usually it's like they send prime Tom Brady to play the St. Louis Rams. I feel like they send somebody to the slaughterhouse, and it's not always these really close games.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, and you always have Jacksonville going out there, which is so dumb. But I could see the Jets here. I mentioned it on my video yesterday. I'd lean Vikings inside of a field goal because they're firing on all cylinders, but this is just not a game that I'm not personally betting this game. There are some other games on this list that I really like, and it's going to be on the side that people do not want to touch. There's one that you should see a comment somebody made today on my video, Andy. I'm sure you've gotten these before.
Well, I want you to get to it, and I want you to read it to me. And in the meantime, does it happen to be about the very next one on that list, the Ravens game?
No, but I like the Bengals.
Love the Bengals.
Yeah.
How can you like the Bengals? They barely got through Carolina.
Yep.
September's over. This team went into last year, just destroyed Buffalo, went into San Fran, destroyed them. There's just something about this team as the season goes on. And Burrow has not played great against the Ravens so far over the course of his career. But this is like Murphy's Law. What can go wrong for the division will go wrong. If the Ravens win this game, man, it's like the narrative that just doesn't help out anybody. You're a conspiracy theorist? Do you think the hurricane made this stuff? Then take the Bengals, because if the Bengals are 1-4, that removes a lot of drama from this entire season and that division and a whole bunch of stuff. But regardless, we see the full complement of receivers back. T. Higgins easily going over. And now you're going to have that offense going up against this Ravens defense, which has been susceptible in previous weeks. They played great last week. Maybe it's a back and forth track meet. Who knows? We've seen we saw this Ravens team lose at home to the Raiders. Yep. So they're not some unbeatable team. They had back-to-back wins, almost coughed up a massive lead to the Cowboys. And I think with all those weapons back, and you see, man, Josivash is a good third, and then Gesicki is used. The running backs are playing well. The one thing that needs work is their defense. But one good thing about the Ravens, they kind of nickel and dime you. It's not a lot of quick strikes from them with the way their offense operates, as we learned the hard way with Zay Flowers. But there will be a lot of Henry, a lot of runs. And if Cincy, I mean, it's a division game. And I believe, as of scroll down a little bit, Alex, any plus threes there? Oh, on DraftKings last night, there it was. It was plus 3 minus 118. If you see everybody, like it said on those donkey charts, piling on the Ravens, and you see the spread not go to 3 or 3.5, they're winking at you. No, but what are you gonna do? No, you're going to take the Ravens, and then it's all a fix. It's all of this. It's all of that. Next is a tornado straight through like in the day after tomorrow. It's going to take down the Hollywood sign created in a lab somewhere. That's going to be you. Where did you find that picture, Alex? Where did you find a donkey walking out of BetMGM? I don't know where, but I'm happy that you did. I'm about the Bengals if I'm picking a side on this game, and I would go money line if it's under 3. I'll take plus 3 for Bengals. And of these two, last week I thought was a T. Higgins. He was a key part of the offense. This one I would go as a Jamar Chase game.
Could see it. No problems there. I also like the fact that this isn't a prop game for me. I don't have a ton of confidence in the props. Ravens have allowed 20 passing plays at 20-plus yards. They're on pace for 85 this year. They only allowed 46 last year, which is pretty insane. Good run defense. DraftKings did something absolutely preposterous. I really can't believe this.
Tell me.
Guess what they priced Derrick Henry's anytime touchdown at? Just take a guess. Just please.
Minus 140.
Minus 380.
Oh my.
Minus 380. Are you kidding me? Yeah, but look at this. Like Caesars minus 195. There's some other perfectly reasonable spots out there. I think minus 195, minus 180 makes minus 380 is basically just a huge fuck you to everybody out there.
You're not taking it.
And they don't offer the no. They don't offer not to score. That is, you know what they're basically saying? They're just basically saying, don't bet this.
That's what I'm saying. They're saying, hey, look elsewhere. We'll give you some other things. Hey, we're giving you some fair alts on other things, Look elsewhere. We don't feel like paying this out. Man, I guess that means he's scoring a touchdown this week, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he should. That Bengals run defense stinks, but this is just still one of those games that it's fishy, right? And there's another one we'll get to, the one right below this. It's fishy. Most people are going to look, and this is, you learn this after losing on these spots for many years, right? And most people look at this and go,
all kidding aside, donkeys, I only say this because I obviously was 19. I was betting, on the Donovan McNabb Eagle. I was just, you have to take your donkey scars. And somebody once said, like, a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a truly wise man learns from others. If you can be that person who doesn't need all the pizza man burns, if you trust our ability to see things like kind of ahead of time, you just trust that I've seen the deep seas. I've seen wars and been a part of them, that you don't want to step onto those battlefields. It's pure Jon Snow Battle of the Bastards. Just take the battles from other people and apply them. Don't have to bet on the heavy favorite every week and lose for 11 years before you finally learn. Expedite that process. Fast forward to the end and start at least, if not betting, on just steering clear, playing Minesweeper. So go ahead, continue.
I'm with you. I'm saying it's easy to look at that and go, whoa, Ravens minus 2.5. That's a lovely spot, right? Like that's, even you or me, that's the first impression. But then you go, okay, something's fishy there. And I think something's fishy on that Commanders line as well. I took the Browns at 3.5, and the Commanders look great, but they faced, Arizona, they faced Washington, They faced, who else did they face recently that they're not Washington, New York, Arizona, Cincinnati. That defense looks terrible. They just gave up 24 to the Carolina Panthers. So somebody responded to me, Andy. The Giants were able to run and pass the ball in the Browns. Do you even watch football? Have you seen the Commanders O-line? And have you seen Cliff Kingsbury making calls? You a goofball. Stop giving people losing picks. Number one, guarantee this guy is a Commanders fan. Guaranteed. Number two, this line has moved to 3 in some spots. And
leave that guy alone. He just lost his house in the government-made hurricane, okay? So he's just he's lashing out.
And I'm not even, look, yeah, obviously Washington can cover this. Like, of course. I'm not saying that this is a sure thing that Washington covers this line. Andy, do you want to tell me that this is not a suspicious line, though, after seeing what Cleveland has looked like, after seeing what the Commanders have looked like? I talked to Ben, too. I said, what do you think it's at? And he was like 3, and he nailed it because he knows that the parity in this league, and week over week, people overreact. And it's like, yes, Jaden Daniels looks awesome. The Commanders look awesome, and the Browns look bad. If this was the case and like everything was as it should be, it'd be a 6.5 point line. Yet it's 3 or 3.5.
The most popular eliminator pick, the most used one in weeks 1 through 4, lost. The most played eliminator pick, lost.
Yep.
I just don't know. I don't want to be condescending. I don't know how somebody can see that and say, maybe it's not the best to chase this way of winning. Hopefully you do. If not, may the sniffs be with you and also with you. So, that guy, I 100%, if you could show those donkeys again, the donkey charts, of those top 4, of those top 5 plays, the top 5 that you see, Vikings, Ravens, Commanders, Bills, Seahawks. Here's what I'm going to tell you. 3 of the money lines are going to hit for the other teams.
You're probably right.
3 of those 5 money lines. You heard it here first. Of the Vikings, Ravens, Commanders, Bills, Seahawks, 3 money lines of their opponents are going to hit. No, but then again, no, I'm not going to say it. Alex, just show them the picture of the guy who bet on the Steelers last week. I don't know if we pulled that up before. I just want to show, just surrounded by money, lost his house, and he's got nothing left, but he's still showing up to bet on the Ravens. He's going to shed that Steelers jacket and then bet on the Ravens. So, that was another one. The one that's crazy to me is like the Giants look like the worst team ever. And I'm surprised that the Seahawks bet isn't number 1 on that list because the Seahawks showed well for themselves on Monday. I can't believe everybody is not hammering that bet up there in Seattle.
I thought Geno Smith looked really good. The problem there was that their defense is ravaged, and I don't know what that D-line is going to look like. I mean, Jared Goff, perfect game, right? And the run game was efficient. That one run from David Montgomery was sick. But also, see, it's the thing about football is it's so funny to look at the end result and ignore what got us there. It ended up being, what was it, a 42-27 game, right? 42-27. JSN catches that towards the sideline on 4th and 3 on a really nice play call. Perfect ball from Geno Smith. They convert. Tyler Lockett inexplicably just took that PI call instead of running his route. They talked about that on the broadcast. That wipes it out and then goes the other way. You're talking about potentially, a 14-point swing there? So what could have been a 30, was it 35-27 at the time or whatever, turns into a 14-point swing. That game could be real close. And Seattle ends up covering that. It's just weird instances like that happen. Detroit looked excellent, but I thought Seattle looked good too. The big question now is, does Malik Neighbors play? He's had the additional days of rest because they played Dallas on last Thursday. But if Malik Neighbors doesn't play, what are you going 15 passes to Wan'Dale Robinson for 36 yards?
Here's an interesting question. If he doesn't play, I've seen the NFL not move lines when prime stars are in, like, other than quarterbacks. Any non-quarterback, the most, moves the line like a half a point. If Malik Neighbors doesn't play, I'm telling you, this thing is staying around 7. But people might bet it so hard thinking that it's more of a value. But I bet you it doesn't even move that much, which is going to make it that much more of a donkey play.
It depends if they're already baking him not playing into this game.
That's true. That's true.
But I don't know if they're hedging it either. I have no clue, Andy. I don't know. I don't know if they expect Neighbors to play. We haven't had any practice reports or anything, but I think he makes a difference.
There is one thing that I thought I was going to have to wave goodbye. We waved goodbye to Rushy Rice. We waved goodbye to Chris Olave. You have to say goodbye when the band blows up, and you say thank you for what you have. Thank you for your service. Who knows? We'll see T. Higgins, although I just don't like that game. But there's somebody. Back-to-back cashes, that's usually when we have to bid somebody adieu. That isn't the case. We got a 1 yard increase for one of my favorite plays that I brought up here last week. The guy commands a massive target share. And I'm sorry, until I see that number past 65.5 as an opening number, I'm going right back to it, and that is Diontae Johnson. They raised his number by like a single yard, 62.5 for a guy who's commanding one of the highest target shares. I may have sent you, I think Bet365 has it minus 110 over the 62.5. And I'm just, once you win twice in a row, I'm going until it's dead or it starts to approach 70 yards. What do you think about that one?
What's his receptions prop?
Something tells me it's going to be high. Well, what's your philosophy when it comes to receptions versus receiving yards? Because I always kind of thought this guy cooks somebody on 140-yard catch, you're pretty much there. But the receptions requires constant peppering.
Yeah, but it also depends on the defense. Like I'm talking about that Godwin spot. I wouldn't be shocked if
you
Godwin
had to all caps me, Alex. Like I couldn't figure out when you typed in Johnson and it didn't pop up. Do you think I am without money, surrounded by water in the floods? And by the way, I'm not being insensitive. All right. If I was floating around New York after Hurricane Sandy, some guy down in the Carolinas can take a crack at me. All right.
I hear you. Sandy was a wild one. I'm in the Northeast too. Yeah. To me, it just kind of depends on the defense, you know, like there's certain guys I would take Jameson Williams yardage prop over receptions prop any day of the week. Right. Obviously it depends where it is. I don't want to just blanket statement this, but oftentimes would you rather have 3.5 receptions on Jameson Williams or 53.5 receiving yards? It's not even a question. And we saw how that's played out multiple times this year already. Mike Williams is another one of those guys. You know, you bank on the 1 or 2 receptions and you get over there. Diontae Johnson's the guy where he's just going to get peppered so much, but Chicago actually has a really quality secondary, kind of similar to what we were talking about with Chris Godwin. I was just curious if he was at like 5.5 with kind of standard juice. If that was the case, I'd like the receptions prop more.
Okay, that's definitely something that kind of is true because he does run routes all over the field, and I believe maybe the receptions. I think receptions they'd be right up there. They would be interchangeable for me, but I know it is a rather tough matchup. But if they're going to move the ball, and hell, if Andy Dalton's going to get 150 yards, I almost feel like Diontae Johnson has to really contribute on. And you saw Leggett obviously step up.
He should.
Yeah. Any last kind of games or bets you want to bring to our attention before we go to our pull it up segment? Because I know you wanted to have one ready for me, but there's actually one I've been using for years, and I have no clue where it stems from. So I would like to do that one today. And but before we get to that, I'll leave the floor open to you. If there was anything that caught your eye, could be anything, even something that maybe isn't available yet. Obviously, you mentioned the Courtland Sutton, but is there anything else you want to bring to my attention, our attention, before we finish up here?
I will say, in 40 minutes, we've covered a lot. I'm impressed with us.
That's what happens when I don't get into full rants at the top, 10-minute rants.
Look, I get it, man. I do 30-minute solo shows talking about like a million miles a minute for every game. I hear you. Cut from the same cloth over here, brother. But
it's the bye weeks also, so they threw us a bone where fewer to kind of talk about. So
I wanted to shout out your followers though for coming and watching some of my stuff over on Odd Shopper and leaving comments and stuff. So I appreciate them. That's been very nice of you.
It's the least they can do. They are, as I'm learning, I don't know the whole sports betting audience. I just assumed it was a semi-sports audience, but apparently this is like the most rambunctious group of the bunch. People are like, your followers are a different breed. That's what like the hockey guy says, and he loves it because obviously it creates more of like this community aspect. And they like, if there's credibility and you're worth listening to and you have good stuff to say, they're happy to come over. And I've always said that about you guys over there. So, and I think naturally after my videos, I've seen it suggest your video. So I think YouTube at least is trying to help bridge the gap.
That algo gets it. You know,
I was telling a friend,
set something up for the Northeast docks, Andy. Let's get our goods back.
I was telling one of my friends as I was having dinner with him, I just Google miscellaneous things to make it appear like I'm a good guy, just in case the ultimate crackdown eventually happens. Like, where can I donate to so-and-so this week? Just in case the ultimate internet search history revealing comes down and there's a Bane-style court system where we're dragged in front of the scarecrow and our crimes are laid out on a PowerPoint, that at least I have some good Googles in there to counter the endless bad ones.
I think they're just going to end up looking at you as a freak. Like if I started doing that, they're like, this guy wants to donate to the Salvation Army, but he also was just on, bestgore.com. That's not good. At the very least, he's a fascinating fella. Yeah. I don't know. That'd be sketchy.
They'll probably want to keep me around like a jet. They'll give me that Steelers guy's jester and make me do a song and a dance for them.
Yeah.
But now I'm gonna say something that Alex, who pulls this stuff up for us, he goes, "You made that one up, right?" He thought I made it up, but he's heard me say it for years. And this one is, you say, I took Diontae, got it in the fourth quarter on the last play of the game, but by hook or by crook, we got there. By hook or by crook? By hook or by crook, we hit the over. Okay, one way or another.
By crook is easy. Essentially, the saying means that we're going to get there no matter what, right? By hook or by crook, like no matter what, this will be the desired result. So by crook is easy. It's saying, if you couldn't do it the right way, you do it the wrong way. But what does by hook mean? That, like, I'm pretty confident in everything I just said, but the hook part, I don't understand what that means.
So my guess is going to be, remember, we're looking for specific results.
Fishing. They catch him the right way, or sorry, were you going to go there?
I was going to say either a guy, hey, I'm catching a fish today, and if I don't, I'm stealing it from the next boat over.
I bet we're on. Let's look this up because we might be over the target on this one.
Yeah, that was my thought. By hook or by crook. Yo, everything with the disputed origin.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
And I'm sure Alex looked. He checked a couple different things. A widely held theory has come from allowing
a crook.
Commoners to take as much wood from royal forests as they could reach with a shepherd's crook, cut down with a bill hook.
I like ours a lot better.
Ours is correct because this is a disputed term. So since there's no definite answer, you can pass it on. That's how most things really gain popularity anyway. So we could outflank them with our definition of by hook or by crook. And that's all she wrote. Another saying for this episode. Thank you guys for coming back, giving you a couple extra days to enjoy this. There are obviously going to be more props and stuff that come up along the way. You know what to look for. Check for that Wicks number. Go check for that Sutton number. Maybe a couple ladders here and there. We will see how it goes, but as always, very much appreciated. Like Dave said, he loves it when you guys go over there. Continue to go over there. He has good stuff. Obviously, make sure you're subscribed here as well. Got hockey starting on Friday with the Scam Stadium series. So for everything, just make sure you are subscribed here on the YouTube channel. We'll be back with you next week for week 6 of a Dave and a Dan. And who are you going to show up as? Jester's hat? Or are you ready to shed it? Take it easy.
Hi. Dan.